All right. What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another Sophisticated Man podcast. Today's guest is one that you probably saw recently, Joe from Strong Minded Joe. What's going on, man?
It's going good. How are you, brother?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good. Glad that we were able to reconnect and have another one of these. I feel like we talked about a lot last time, but there is still a lot that we could also cover. So I was trying to get some more content out of the both of us today.
Yeah, no, it should be interesting to have another conversation. Obviously, diving into female nature today. So looking forward to
Mm-hmm.
seeing what questions you're going to ask. Me trying to provide as much value as I possibly can. Um, Give the audience my um, real experience, mistakes that I've made. There's been many. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Coming from a place of being the stereotypical nice guy. So I guess for anyone who's watching, who's sees themselves as a bit of a nice guy, a bit of a sorry to say it, but a bit of a simp. There should be a lot of value in today's podcast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you mentioned that because, and again, if you guys want to follow Joe, I'll leave his links down below as always. If you want to see more of what he got going on Instagram, YouTube, um, but to that point of making mistakes and being a simp and being the nice guy, I truly believe that every guy has a period where he almost has to go through that in order to realize, okay, I don't want to be this for the rest of my life. I don't want to show up as this in my relationships. Um, just generally with other people as well. You don't want to be a people pleaser. You don't want to be that guy who's constantly seeking validation. Um, I guess the first question can be kind of like, why do you think so many guys fall into that stuff, that category of being the nice guy or being, kind of simping to women and overly pursuing them? What do you think makes guys want to do that?
So I think there's two different aspects at play. I would say, firstly,
Mm-hmm.
there is the individual aspect of the actual guy. Is the fact that the majority of guys nowadays are not in good shape. Addicted to bad habits. Um, uh, Find it difficult to control their emotions. Um, Find it difficult to be authentic and to be real, to express real, genuine interest and desire in a woman, but also be able to set boundaries with her and communicate their views, their opinions, whatever. So I think as a result of that, they a lot of guys don't have any other option really but to be a simp because, and this is the other aspect, is that women now have extremely high standards in men. If you look at, for example, the stats on online dating apps, Tinder, or the rest of it, women are only choosing the top 10% of guys. Um, and so even an average looking woman who's 5, 6 out of 10, let's say, in terms of visually, which is obviously the first thing that we see on an online dating app. Um, even those girls are trying to get the top guys, the top 10% of guys, and they feel entitled to the top tier guys because society, culture tells them to go get it, girl. Like you're a queen. Like don't let anyone put you down. Don't take any shit from anyone. Like they're kind of warped with this illusion that they're perfect and they don't need to self-improve, they don't need to develop themselves. And so when you have these two polarizing aspects going on, you've got the guy who isn't in the top 10%, let's say, who's an average guy with all of the things that I talked about, and then you've got a woman who feels entitled to the top tier guy. Then it creates this very big power dynamic where the only way for that guy to gain any sort of access to that woman is to be a simp, is to put her on a pedestal because she's up here and he's down there, and that's what society has created. I think mainly through firstly through feminism, through modern feminism, from disempowering men, from teaching men that it's toxic to be competitive, it's toxic to get in shape, it's toxic to be stoic and resilient. All of these things that society is teaching to men and to women. So I think if you're attached or engaged in anything that's mainstream in terms of media, then you're very much likely to fall into that simp category. I guess it's just the classic kind of blue pill, red pill kind of philosophy, really, is that anything that's mainstream is basically very blue pill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's definitely a lot to unpack with what you said. I think that there's like, you mentioned the two different, so the way that I kind of broke down what you said, there's really two issues. It's on the women's side and it's on the men's side. So men aren't stepping up and women are just, they have an inflated ego, or maybe they have standards that are just ridiculously high, which I think both are true. I think both can be very, very true. And I've always thought in situations like this, when it comes to relationships or society or anything, if you fix the men, everything gets fixed. Like, you make men stronger, you make men more capable, more confident, more giving, more generous, a positive force in society, everything gets fixed. Women start to take, because women are followers naturally, so they're going to follow the men that are strong in society and say, oh, well, if I want to get one of those guys, I can't be this girl who's like crazy on standards, or she's on OnlyFans, or she's all this like degenerate stuff. That's not going to fly, because no guy's going to want to actually entertain that. So I always blame the negative and the positive on the man, because I think it really does start with us. But as far as being a simp is concerned, I do always think that comes down to just a lack of self-worth, and you're chasing that in women. You think, oh, well, she's pretty, she gives me a little bit of attention, then that means that I'm seen, I'm heard, that I'm important. Which, yeah, if you go at it with that attitude, then you're always going to be simping, because you're always chasing her affection. So I think if you really, the first thing that men I think need to do is like get clear with themselves on a deep inner level. What do I stand for? What do I actually think is important in life? What's my purpose? What are things that are important to me? And start there. Because if you're always chasing that feeling from anybody outside of yourself, then you're always going to be let down. So I think that's step number one, is kind of figure out, who are you? Who do you want to be? And what kind of mark do you want to make on the world here? Because that's at the end of the day what's really important.
Yeah, I agree. I think society is deeply, especially in the past couple of years, really reduced people's just natural self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe I wasn't as aware of it before as I am now, because I'm looking for certain things, certain behaviors. I'm very observant of what other people are doing. But
Mm-hmm.
I think if you go back 5-10 years ago, the landscape of dating was extremely different. I don't remember guys being as depressed, as low in confidence as they are now. Obviously, it was still a thing, but now it seems like almost every guy is in that position.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the same actually goes for women as well. I think obviously with a lot of, especially if you're looking at um, single single women that are on online dating apps, or doing OnlyFans or anything like that. It's not good for their self esteem at the end of the day to be
Mm-hmm.
posting videos and pictures online and getting paid for it. Like they, for example, they start to become very intolerant of men in general, because the men that are giving them attention, giving them validation, obviously giving them money, are
Mm-hmm.
are basically simps, and are, they start to feel that level of disrespect for themselves, because sex becomes very transactional. And I've
Mm-hmm.
noticed that with quite a few women that I've spoken to online, not necessarily the OnlyFans, but just post a lot of content on their channel that's very sexual. Um,
Mm-hmm.
is that they almost start to not like sex, not like flirtation, not like anything that around sex. And I think that kind of destroys their self esteem, their self worth as well. And I think the
Mm-hmm.
same is true for girls that are sleeping around a lot, that are, swiping all the time on Tinder, meeting up, hooking up, and some of them obviously develop feelings for these guys. A lot of them don't. They kind of see it as another another pole. Any pole is a goal, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's again, I think it kind of reduces um, the impact of sex, and the importance of sex and intimacy. So they
Mm-hmm.
start to kind of devalue it, minimize it, not see it as important, like kind of just like another exercise, like going to the gym.
Mm-hmm.
Going to the gym, then I'm going to go jump on some guy's dick, and then I'm going to go. It's just like another activity in the day. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, I'm quite traditional in the sense of, I value sex, I value intimacy. Not to say that like, I don't ever hook up or anything like that, but I have to feel like there's some sort of level of connection there, and that I'm not just the 20th guy that girls slept with that week. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
if you're in a club, whatever, you're drunk or inebriated, whatever. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Logic goes out of the window. But I think
Mm-hmm.
in normal circumstances, I just don't find that attractive at all. And so it
Mm-hmm.
reduces the market as well, slightly as well, if you're not really interested in that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. I do agree. I think that this comes down to, you know, it's just human nature too. Like if we get an overabundance of things, or we're always stimulated by something like every day, you don't really value it. Like if you have, like, let's say for example, I eat, lobster tail every day. Am I actually going to think that's like a treat or some type of like cool thing? No, I eat it every single day. I'm not going to care because I get it so abundantly. So I view almost sex in a similar way too. Like if you have it every day, or let's say you have it with multiple people all the time every day, well, it's not going to mean much to you because you're having it so much. It's going to lose its value. It's going to lose its potency in your life. It's kind of like so if you're in, like, if any guys watching this that's had a lot of relationship experience, you'll find that after a while, your girlfriend, you might really care for her, you might really enjoy spending time, but if you guys are having sex like every day, after a while you're like, all right, I guess I'll do it today. It's not exciting anymore because you're doing it so much. I mean, that happened to me when I had my girlfriend back basically a year ago. I think we broke up, so we'd be hooking up like sometimes multiple 3-4 times a day. And after a while, it was just like, man, I'm just like exhausted. I don't really care to do it anymore. Like I didn't really have that same energy to do it like I did
Mm-hmm.
the first time. So it's kind of like, if you, I'm not saying you should like be celibate forever and never have sex and just like, etc. I'm not saying that, but I am saying that if you had a little bit of discipline in that area and just a little bit of control, I think you'll find that when you do engage in that activity, you're going to have, like you said, more intimacy. It's going to mean a little bit more because you're not just having it every day like a glass of water. Like it's not meaningful to you.
Yeah,
That's just my
I
thoughts.
can I can see where you're coming from with that. What I would say that it's important for guys not to live with their partner until, or I would say,
Mm-hmm.
really until you're ready to marry that person and to have kids with
Yeah.
them. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's good for maintaining that level of desire and attraction. Because
Mm-hmm.
maybe if you're seeing each other 2 or 3 times a week and you're having wild, passionate sex, then it's going to be something that you're going to look forward to, something that you're
Yeah.
both excited about. But obviously, if you're lying next to each other every single night and come on, bodies colliding, whatever, it's going to happen, isn't it? And it's going to be very difficult to keep that self control. And honestly, if you're not having sex every night and you're lying next to that person, then there's maybe an issue, maybe an issue in the relationship as well.
Yeah.
I know that for a lot of guys, they don't have the sex drive to want to have
Mm-hmm.
sex every night. I know particularly
Mm-hmm.
for married couples, and guys that kind of lose that focus, lose that desire to keep self improving, kind of just allow themselves to fall back. A lot of guys um, stop going to the gym, stop being
Mm-hmm.
productive, stop focusing on other parts of their life like business or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the attraction is going to go out the window, obviously, when you're not doing that. But if you're spending your time with that person all the time, then, as you said, it starts to lose its value, and it starts to become a little bit more like a friendship than a romantic relationship. Which is why I say you
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't move in with someone until you're ready to get married and have kids, build a life together. Um, and I think
Mm-hmm.
that level of commitment, I think, is then okay if obviously if you're having sex every night because you have that level of commitment. And there's like a union there that you're going to be together like forever. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
something may happen. Like you can't control the future. You don't know what's going to happen. But I think that level of commitment is because you're then having that emotional intimacy as well. It's not just like a physical thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. It's a different level of commitment when you're literally living with somebody. And I actually saw an interesting stat to your point, and I didn't even know this. This was like recently I saw this statistic that couples that live together before marriage actually had a higher chance of getting divorced as opposed to couples that didn't live together and then got married and then lived together. They had a longer chance of actually staying together, which I found very interesting. And I wondered, well, I was like, why? I wonder why that is. Um, People that end up living together first, because I always thought, okay, well, if I'm going to marry a girl, I want to know what it's like to live with her first, and then, but if it goes well, then you think about marriage. So I found that very interesting. The statistic is actually they get divorced uh, at a higher rate than people
Mm-hmm.
that don't. So that is pretty interesting. Um, I did want to ask you a question about sex drive because we're talking about like testosterone
Mm-hmm.
levels in men, and a lot of what we're talking about is related to that. And I think speaking of statistics, since the 50s, testosterone levels have just been plummeting. Like the average guy's testosterone range now, they tell you that 1100 to 200. Um, I forget the actual delineation. It's like ml or something. But if you have 1100 to 200 range, they consider that normal. But what's really interesting is if you have a 200, let's say you have a 200 level testosterone level and you're 26, 27 years old as a man, that's low T. That's not optimal. Like they
Mm-hmm.
tell you that it's normal. Oh, well, as long as you're 200, but that's still not good. Like
Mm-hmm.
you should at least be 6'5", maybe above 7. That's like you're performing and optimized at your peak. But if you're that low, it's not that good. So and again, I think that can also be attributed to if you look at the way that the graphs are, like men's testosterone levels have decreased, but the rate of suicide has increased in
Mm-hmm.
men, and it's like three times the rate of women, 3 or 4 times the rate of women suicide rates. So obviously, there's a correlation there with men not feeling like they're fully tapped into their masculinity or their testosterone levels aren't optimal. There's 100% a correlation. And I have a couple opinions on how, or I guess on why that is. But what do you think guys can do to start to reverse that effect on themselves? Like, what do you think guys can do to start increasing their testosterone?
I would say first and foremost, get in the gym, uh, start
Yeah,
start
facts.
lifting weights. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, I think bodybuilding kind of style training, hypertrophy style training, where you're doing
Mm-hmm.
a lot of reps, you're doing a lot of volume. Um, that naturally drives metabolism up and testosterone as well.
Mm-hmm.
But not only that, but it just makes you a lot more mentally resilient as well, because when you've got that amount of training volume, if you imagine like, you know, for those guys that don't train, like, probably I say training volume, they don't know what the hell I'm on about. So um, if you're lifting like light weights, but you're doing loads and loads and loads of reps, your muscles can kind of endure the pain of it for quite a long time. Versus if you go to the gym and you try to lift really heavy weights, then like your the fatigue that you have in your muscles, you get that extremely quickly, and then you can't complete many more reps. Whereas obviously if you're doing lighter weights, you're getting a lot more fatigue to the muscle, and you're breaking down the muscle fibers. So not only is that physically going to drive your testosterone, it's going to make you a lot more mentally and emotionally strong, because I guess like the
Mm-hmm.
classic philosophy of like life is a marathon, not a sprint. So if you imagine running a marathon, that's going to make you a lot more mentally and emotionally tough than if you just do a 100-meter sprint. So I think
Mm-hmm.
if you apply that philosophy to the gym and training, I think that firstly will make a big difference, getting in the gym and training in that way. I think generally just learning to become more emotionally in control, thinking more rationally and less emotionally, which again is something which is the opposite of what society preaches and promotes. Says, guys, you should be emotional. You should, speak about your problems. You should cry on your girlfriend's shoulder. You should do all of that sort of stuff. And obviously, like there's a time and a place to do that sometimes. But I think if you're doing that on a regular basis, then what you're really doing is being a bitch. Basically, you're being a slave to your emotions, and unless you've had someone die or something really bad has happened, then you probably don't have any good reason to be that emotional. The problems that you're facing in your life have solutions. So again, it's being logical and rational, looking for the solutions and taking action. And I think also men need to learn how to survive independently of women and feminine energy. Like it's kind of that symbolic detachment from the mother.
Yep.
So a lot of guys, and I think this is where a lot of the simp mentality comes from, is that attachment to mummy, like wanting mummy to kind of take care of you and do everything for you, and be there for you when you're sad, and all the rest of it. So any woman that kind of comes into your life, you're approaching her kind of in that mentality, in that philosophy. Like you're looking for a woman to come into your life and make you feel better. And so detaching from that source for a period, which is why obviously no fap's really important. Not watching porn, having a period of abstinence where you're not having sex, or you're not even necessarily like speaking to girls, and you're just focusing on improving yourself, working on your business or your career, getting in the gym, being productive. But that's a really hard road to go down.
Yep.
So I guess it's has to be drive there. There has to be the desire there, and people have to understand as well, like what is the consequence of not doing that. And as you kind of said, like the stats on divorce, the stats on male suicide, is kind of almost in a way trying to predict the future using the stats. Is like, if I continue to be operating this way and live in this way, these are what the stats are saying. This is what's most likely to happen to me. Obviously, like we don't want bad stuff to happen to us, but kind of got to have eyes on the reality of the situation.
Yeah, those are very, very good points. I think those are all really good things that guys can take away and start to apply into their life in terms of, like, I wanted to bounce off specifically as something you said, because I do agree when it comes to, like, because this is such a hot topic right now, is crying in front of your girl or crying in front of your woman or anything like that. Is that acceptable? Is that not acceptable? Does it turn her off, etc.? I think that's a great talking point that we can kind of dive into real quick.
Yeah.
Because I have an interesting opinion about it. I'll quickly kind of give my assessment of that whole thing. I think the majority, like 9 out of 10 times, it's better to not do it. in my opinion, because I think when you really look at the male female's dynamics, the man is supposed to be the rock, and the man's the one who's emotionally stable, more stoic, doesn't really get riled up by his emotions. I mean, it's not saying he doesn't have emotions. It's just saying when you're in a relationship and she's looking to you for support, for security, she doesn't want to see you losing your mind, or she doesn't want to see you completely like, um, an emotional roller coaster, because that's more or less what she's going to be doing. Now, it depends on the girl, because some girls aren't as emotional as others, but for the most part, she has the luxury of being like that and being okay. Because the guy's not going to say, "Oh, whoa, stop crying in front of me, weirdo." Like, guys, I actually like, I think the difference between men and women, men find it endearing. Women almost find it a little like of a turnoff when a guy does that to excess. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that is a big difference between men and women. So I would say for the most part, it's in your best interest to, if you're gonna do it, find like a guy friend to talk about your problems with. Like, get emotional with your friend, your guy friend specifically, or like find a room alone where you can just let that stuff out. Find an outlet, like make music, go to the gym, like we've been talking about. Find something to help you in that area, because I don't think it's healthy to suppress your emotions. You're gonna need
Mm-hmm.
to find a way to get it out. But with all that being said, if you're gonna do it, I think that there's certain situations where you could potentially get away with it. I think you mentioned something like that too. Like, I have an example. So a friend of mine, he he was going through some stuff with his family. His dog passed away. Pretty emotional period in his life. And now he's already established himself as like the provider, the protector, the
Mm-hmm.
masculine figure
Yeah.
in her life. So she already knew that that's who he was. But
Mm-hmm.
he just happened to go through a rough patch, and he cried a little bit in front of her, and she comforted him, she nurtured him, because that's what women are going to do. They're nurturers. So she was like trying to make him feel better. Now you would think, oh, okay, she loses respect for him, she loses attraction for him. I think the way that he played it was perfect, because he already established his masculinity. So she knows that's who he is. He just happened to be in a bad spot, and she supported him in that situation. Now they're still together, he's still in the masculine role. Nothing really changed. And I think it's because um he showed her that's who he was ahead of time, instead of just crying
Mm-hmm.
all the time. Like, he doesn't constantly come to her with problems. Like, he just did it one time, and he gave a solution. He wasn't like, "Oh, I'm fucked up, I don't know what to do." He was like, "Oh, this sucks. Like, I'm sad, and it's okay," and he's accepting of it. But he's like, "Well, I'm gonna be okay though. It's not a problem for me." So I think if you approach it from that perspective, you're gonna be okay. But I'd say for the most part, you're better off not doing it. So yeah, that's kind of my long my long take on it. What's your perspective on all that?
Yeah, man, I agree wholeheartedly with all of what you said. Really,
Mm-hmm.
I think that particular example you gave is, yeah, if you're not in a position of uh, not authority, but you're the masculine. Uh,
Yeah.
you're taking the masculine role in the relationship, and that's very much
Mm-hmm.
established from the get go. I think
Mm-hmm.
if you cry now and again, obviously based
Yeah.
on what's happening in your life, I think that the
Mm-hmm.
showing of emotions is important in a relationship in terms of
Mm-hmm.
developing that connection.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I'm a bit of a crier. Like when I get emotional, I cry. It doesn't even
Mm-hmm.
necessarily have to be like something sad. It might just be like something that's like super super powerful. Like it might be, for
Yeah.
example, something like really significant in my life that happens. That's like really a really
Mm-hmm.
super positive thing, and I might like kind of shed
Mm-hmm.
a tear just because it's like kind of welled me up and maybe like so emotional. Like
Mm-hmm.
doesn't always have to be something sad. But I think in the specific example that you gave that was something sad. I think something like that is something that isn't likely to be happening very often. And if it is, if there is that kind of rough patch and it's continuous, then I'm sorry to break it to your bro, but she's not there to save you. That's your job. You need to save yourself. So you need to find yourself out of that rough patch. Which is why if you're single and you're going through a rough patch, I mean, like for example, I've had a bit of a rough patch in the past couple of months. Received a lot of online hate, a lot of abuse, just general a lot of life stress. I haven't felt like I'm in the right position to be serious about anyone, or even really semi-serious, like not necessarily like properly serious, but like in terms of seeing someone on a regular basis and having that level of like emotional intimacy. It's like that's not something that I've felt like I've wanted to do, and I think every man should really come from that standpoint of you're not like it's mainly just about taking responsibility, not bringing someone into your life and making them have to deal with all of your shit. And there's a lot of women out there that will put up with it, that will sympathize with you, because obviously that's the way that society has taught them to be, and then they're naturally nurturing and caring, but it will destroy attraction, which is why I think a lot of women cheat nowadays, because they're brainwashed with this idea that they should be attracted to the kind of guy who's very emotional, that like has a lot of problems, like that kind of savior kind of mentality. But also, I think they're brainwashed a little bit into believing that that it's their kind of role, it's their responsibility to I think, what I was I kind of lost track a little bit there, but what I was going to say is they're taught they should always be loyal, like to their man, and they're not necessarily given the empowerment to say, look, if there isn't the attraction there, if there isn't the passion there, if we're not having great sex, then I need to take care of my mental and emotional health. And we'll get onto this in a minute, in terms of how important sex is to women, is that they're not encouraged to break up with guys, and obviously because they're emotional as well, they don't like to do it, and they'll stay in a relationship for a long time, in an unhappy relationship, where they're almost being the mother to a guy, and will most likely cheat at some point, when another guy comes along who's got their shit together. So yeah, I mean, went on a bit of a tangent there, I think, a little bit, but I think when it comes to vulnerability as well, and I'll share my kind of experience a little bit with it as well, is that I remember this one time where I had like a little bit of a holiday romance, and I was seeing this girl, spending every day with her, and I come from a position where I'm very much used to my own time, my own space. I've never had a serious relationship before, so it was very much like, it kind of felt like I was in a relationship with this girl, even though obviously it wasn't. It was a holiday romance, and I knew that it had to come to an end at some point. But I kind of got a little bit upset and teary to like on the last day, or towards the end, and I kind of remember, because I'm very self-reflective naturally as a person, is that the reason I was getting upset was obviously that she was leaving and going out of my life, and almost I was using my vulnerability and my emotions to try to kind of keep her attached to me.
Mm.
So it
Mm.
wasn't really coming from a very authentic place. It was coming
Mm.
from more of a needy kind of place of, oh, please don't leave me,
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm.
and that that particularly destroyed any sort of level of attraction, because whenever women feel like they're being emotionally controlled or manipulated, they lose that kind of attraction there, because it needs to be feel natural, not forced.
Mm-hmm. That is 100% facts. And I could speak to that as well. And I want every guy watching this to realize that this is the reality of life. This is how women are. Again, they are very, how do I put it? They're emotional creatures, so they always look for that security. And if they're not getting it from their guy, they will potentially, they might not act on it all the time, but they will subconsciously want it from somebody else. I've had, I've had girls with boyfriends, girls that were married, had husbands, were engaged, talk to me like I was their partner. And I literally, I wasn't even trying anything. I wasn't even I wasn't even escalating. I was just having a conversation. And because I was just open to listening to them, they felt
Mm-hmm.
comfortable telling me all these like deep, dark secrets about their relationship and about that stuff that's going on. I remember this one girl, uh, we were at this wedding, and I've known her for a while. She went to my high school, and we were just talking about her relationship. And I was asking her, I was like, "Hey, so how's things going with you and with John?" That was his name. And she goes, "Well, it's okay. They're not great." And she was like getting into the, well, we got problems, and she was getting into that conversation. And she was saying that they weren't having sex, they weren't enjoying each other, they weren't excited to like see each other and everything like that. Now, all the while she's telling me this, she's like touching my shoulder, like getting
Mm-hmm.
close to me. She's like, "You're so attractive. Why don't you have a girlfriend?" I'm like, I'm not even trying at all, anything at all with this girl. So that's just something guys need to keep in mind, that again, it's not even their fault necessarily. It's just how they're wired. Like if they're not getting that affection, they're not getting that
Mm-hmm.
excitement from you, then if she goes out alone or she's with her friends or she's whatever,
Mm.
she's gonna seek that somewhere else. I'm telling you right now,
Yeah.
she's gonna. It doesn't matter if she's married. Doesn't matter if she's in a relationship. It doesn't matter how long she's been with you. She's gonna seek that if you're not giving that to her. So to your point about like, um, women being like women kind of like looking for that next thing, if they're not, if they're not getting that at their home base, from their man, that's really important to them. So if you're not providing it, then she's probably going to be looking elsewhere. And even if she doesn't act on it, she's going to be thinking about it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I've slept with girls that have got boyfriends. I've sexted girls, sexted women that are married.
Yeah.
There's going to be the guy
Mm-hmm.
out there that doesn't give a fuck, who doesn't care.
Yep.
And
Mm-hmm.
so I guess when it comes to that, it's like women have that natural desire to be in the moment, and to be present, and they feel most alive, they feel most feminine,
Mm-hmm.
um, when they're being pleased sexually. Um,
Yeah.
and so obviously if you're in a relationship where you're not satisfying a woman's sexual needs, then, as you say, she is going to start looking elsewhere. She might not necessarily act on it, but she's
Mm-hmm.
kind of checking other guys out, and messaging other guys, posting thirst traps, all of the stuff that's extremely common in most relationships nowadays is that kind of looking for other options, even when you're
Yeah.
inside of a relationship. So
Mm-hmm.
whilst guys kind of a relationship generally for a lot of guys is a massive heartbreak for them,
Mm-hmm.
which they struggle to get over, and which is why you see a lot of guys, heartbroken into the gym, like trying to repair themselves.
Mm-hmm.
The girl's already the girl's already with another guy writing on another
Yeah.
dick.
Yep.
And it's because she's
Literally.
already lined up the options
Mm-hmm.
beforehand while she's in the relationship. So if you've got a girl and
Mm-hmm.
she's posting first trap, she's messaging guys that that are hot, and she's saying that they're just friends, and all of this sort of behaviour, then it's a
Mm-hmm.
very big red flag for you and your relationship. So I think boundaries are extremely important, because I mean, obviously, I've as I said, I've slept with girls who've got boyfriends, whatever. But I can't imagine being in that situation where I,
Mm-hmm.
I'm with a girl and she's cheated on me.
Mm-hmm.
um,
I know.
like that would probably be one of my like worst possible things. I think naturally
Mm-hmm.
I'm very competitive and very jealous. So if I've got a girl, then I need to feel like I'm her complete world.
Mm-hmm.
And no other guy is like going to be anywhere near close to me. But I think a lot
Mm-hmm.
of guys settle into relationships because they don't
Yep.
have many options in the sexual marketplace. So um,
Mm-hmm.
I guess for those guys that are in relationships, I would say, like, you need to start setting boundaries. It's just your girl's going to get a lot more respect. She's going to have a lot more desire for you.
Mm-hmm.
If you start setting boundaries, start calling her out on her behaviour,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously if she's not into it and she leaves, then that's a good thing. You've got an opportunity then to work on yourself and improve yourself. But you can waste
Mm-hmm.
years and years and years in a relationship that is unfulfilled. She ends up
Yep.
cheating. You get a divorce, and then you've wasted however many years of your life, and you haven't really got anything to show for it. Which is why obviously you see a lot of guys um, that are divorced. A lot of the suicides come from that
Yeah.
demographic of men, because they just can't handle the fact that
Mm-hmm.
their woman's left them.
Mm-hmm.
They probably can't see their kids very often. Um, they've given up all of their hopes and dreams because they've invested all of their time and energy into trying to keep their woman happy, spending time with the kids, all the rest of it, and they haven't got anything to show
Mm-hmm.
for it, and it's super sad. So
Yeah.
I like to try to save as many guys from that heartbreak as much as possible. Obviously, I think a lot. I don't know for yourself, but
Mm-hmm.
I've learned a lot from having my heart broken. Like, haven't, as I said, haven't been in a serious relationship. I've never had a girl cheat on me or anything like that. Like, had my heart broken by girls that I was in love with, or whatever, um, that were attached to whether in relationships with other people.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that that's slightly different when you haven't. I've been living with people, with someone, or the rest of it. But I do think every guy needs to experience heartbreak, just to
Yeah.
understand and realize the like where they've been going wrong, so they can start making corrections in their life. But with that being said, like, I don't really think it's worthwhile to spend 20 years wasting your life and then that happening at the end of it. So you can try and get people before that. I think
Yeah.
that's important.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, well, this since we're talking about statistics, 80% of women, actually 80% of divorces are initiated by women, and that is a real stat. And I wish that wasn't the case, but it is, unfortunately. And I mean, we can get into a whole bunch of different reasons of why that is, but that's just the reality. And it's just something you got to think about as a guy. Like, you have to really be careful who you're dating, who you want to commit to, who you actually end up spending your life, your time, your money, your energy with, because um, that's something. It's something that you don't really have a lot of leverage around if you get married. You have to really think about that, especially in the States. I mean, the laws are just ridiculous here. But that's a whole different thing we can get into with marriage. But
Yeah, man.
I want to be very careful with how I phrase this next question, because I'm thinking like the way that like the average guy could hear what we're saying and be
Sounds
like,
juicy.
oh my god, yeah, like girls are cheaters. I knew it. I'm not even gonna talk to women. They're all blah blah. And they get this like incel mindset based on what we just said. It's like, I wouldn't think of it from that perspective, because I do think that there is a way that you can find a girl that's quality, that's classy, and she gets her needs met, and you don't have to really worry about her cheating on you. So I think that it comes down to, like you said, establishing boundaries, knowing what you're okay with, what you're not okay with, because at the end of the day, women test you, and they test you because they're testing for strength. And if they don't see you as a strong man who has certain principles, certain boundaries, values, well, then she's not going to value you as much. She's going to look elsewhere for guys that do. So I think if you have that, you don't have much to worry about. And two, to go along with that, women are such funny creatures too. Like, you have to be the one to set boundaries, but you also have to give her emotional stability. You have to give her attention. You have to give her time. Like, if you think of masculine energy, like that, it's about giving. It's about projecting, giving out. Women, feminine energy is about receiving. So she's receiving you constantly: attention, time, money, energy, resources, always. So you have to be able to provide a certain degree, and you also have to, at the same time, be the guy to set boundaries and say, nah, we're not doing this. Or, you know what, that, that club that you want to go to with your single friends, I wouldn't appreciate you going there, because I think that that's kind of disrespectful. Like, you have to set those hard
Mm-hmm.
boundaries sometimes. Uh, Otherwise, she might think about leaving you, or she might think about doing something very, very hurtful.
Mm.
So, in your opinion, what do you think a guy needs to do to like really solidify himself as that guy, to where if he gets involved with a woman, she's not going to think about cheating on him because she's like, well, he's the best. What do you think a guy needs to do?
Needs to be ambitious. Needs to be
Yeah.
working on becoming successful. Um,
Hmm.
and honestly, I think the only way to do that nowadays is to have your own business.
Yeah.
I think you need to be independent. So you need to,
Hmm.
I think, really live alone. And I think you need to be able to maintain good high standards of living
Hmm.
independently. Along with that, obviously, comes financially being independent.
Yep.
I think to be in good shape and to have high testosterone levels. Um,
Hmm.
I think the the requirements are very high to be, to
Sure.
be to be completely honest. If
Hmm.
you're happy to be the average guy, then the reality is that you're competing against guys who are not willing to be average. And even though it might be a small percentage of guys, as I've already said, women feel entitled to those top tier guys, whether they're single or whether they're in a relationship. It doesn't really matter. So in terms of becoming that guy, those things that I've mentioned, but I think also in terms of it becoming very clear to her. Let's say that you're talking to a girl, and you're not at that stage where you're in a relationship yet. You're just at the talking stage. It has to be very clear to her that you value your time and your attention, and you're not constantly messaging that girl. You're not constantly giving her your attention. You're not spending loads of money on her, taking her out to dates all the time, all the rest of it. And that you've got other options as well. Like you can find a replacement very 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 quickly, very very easily. And I think also I forgot the point I was going to make. Too much going on in my mind. I think in terms of what I was going to say is her friendship group as well is extremely important. So girls that generally have a lot of girlfriends that are going to clubs all the time, that are watching Love Island. I don't know if you have Love Island in America, but you probably know about it.
We do.
And they're watching like all of this kind of garbage. They're being brainwashed by society, and like you're not going to turn a hoe into a housewife. I know that's like a very cliche, like red pill kind of thing to say, and obviously I'm not being disrespectful to those girls that want to sleep around by calling them hoes, but they are kind of hoes at the same time.
Yeah.
Sometimes you gotta say it how it is. But you're not going to change a girl once you get her into a relationship. So once you start setting boundaries with her, and she's lived the entirety of her life doing whatever the hell she wants, and then you're gonna start saying, no, you can't go to the club with your girls unless you're a very very elite man. She's not gonna go for that. And particularly if she's attractive herself and she's got other options that are other guys that are equally successful, or have got social status, all the rest of it. If she's quite a high quality girl as well, and she's got other options, she's really not gonna accept any sort of boundaries. Unfortunately. Obviously there's that emotional connection as well. So if there is that really strong emotional connection, then it could be different. But I would say 9 times out of 10, if you're not an elite guy and she's that kind of girl who wants to be going out clubbing all the time and doing whatever the hell she wants, then any boundaries that you set are probably likely to get either broken or she just won't respect them.
Yeah, there's 2 things I want to say about that, and I think the first thing is you have to be aware of who you're talking to. So if you're dating a girl and she is that type of girl who goes to the clubs all the time, she wants to party on the back of dudes' yachts and like go to all these clubs and do all this stuff, be aware that that's who she is. You're not going to change who she is to her character. And I think that's where a lot of guys, and even women, they get into trouble. They get into a relationship thinking, oh, well, I can fix him. Or, oh, yeah, I'm going to fix her. She's not going to do that anymore when she's with me. It's like, bro, I don't know what to tell you, but people are creatures of habit. And if they've done something for a long period of time, especially years, and they're stuck into a lifestyle, very, very small chance of you actually changing how they operate and how they think and who they are. Unless they themselves want to make a change, there's not much you can do about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I use the analogy too, like, if you picked up a venomous snake and it bites you on the arm, you can't get mad at the snake because you're the one that picked it up. Like it's your fault that the snake bit you. It's a snake. You knew what it was. You knew what it was when you picked it up. It was a venomous freaking snake. So with a girl, like if you get with a girl who's into that kind of lifestyle and she acts like that when she's around you and you get upset about it, the only person you can really get mad at is yourself, bro. That's your fault. Why did you entertain women like that and get involved with women like that are just going to stress you out? So that's something that the guy has to pay attention to. So that's kind of like more of a personal responsibility for us to like make sure we're finding the right kind of women that we enjoy, and enjoy us, obviously. The second thing I want to say too is, as far as being a top tier guy, I agree. I think that is kind of like the cure all for, relationship issues. Obviously it's not like 100%, like there's going to be something there's nuance to what we're talking about, obviously. But yeah, being a dude who's very equipped, he has resources, he's confident, he has a stable income, stable life. He's a very muscular dude. He's attractive. He's like in good shape. That is gonna, that's gonna carry you very, very far. And I think what's interesting about all that is it's really not like, maybe to be in the top 1%, it's pretty difficult, but it's really not that hard to be a guy who's a little bit above average or even marginally above average. Because if you look at the stats, I mean, I've said so many stats in this freaking podcast, but 30% of, I don't know what it's like worldwide, but 30% of Americans go to the gym. So that means 70% of people in the country are out of shape, fat, don't know how to eat right. So if you simply go to the gym consistently and you eat decently well, you're already in the top 30%.
Mm-hmm.
And if you write down your goals, for example, and you review what your goals are and you study that every day, literally less than 5% of people do that. So if you do that consistently, you're in the top 5%. You're in the top 10%. Now, you look at income levels, that's because that's something I know that a lot of guys pay attention to. If you really look at income levels, at least in America, $50,000 a year is the average, like baseline average. So if you make 80, 90, you're already in the top 10%. You don't have to be this like multi-millionaire entrepreneur, like badass. You should strive for that, but you don't need to be like absolutely at the very,
You
very
don't need to be
top. You
there.
can still, yeah, you could be building to that, or you could
Mm-hmm.
be at least close to that to some degree, and you're still good. So I think that when a guy hears, oh, top 10%, top 20%, like I'll never get there. Look around, bro. The bar is set so low, and there's so many like useless, like, men that don't even have any type of competition, or they're no, they don't have no competition. They're screwed because any slight competition is gonna beat them. There's a lot of guys like that. So if you just do like 5%, 10% better than the average person, you're good, and just keep continuing from there. Because I think that intimidates a lot of guys, but it's really not that hard when you think about it.
Yeah, I was going to add on to that and be a little bit of devil's advocate. Is
Sure.
that, well, I saw a stat, and well, it was not necessarily a stat, but some kind of content saying that high value men actually get cheated on the most out of
I think I saw that too.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But I think when it comes to high value, it's like what's
What does that mean? Yeah.
what's yeah, because that's obviously subjective. I think if they've got
Hmm.
a lot of money, that doesn't necessarily mean high value if you're not in good shape or um,
Yeah.
all the rest of it. But I think you're having shared similar values, I think are extremely important. Um, I know I know quite a few girls that maybe live that sort of lifestyle that we were talking about before. That maybe they're
Mm-hmm.
going out clubbing a lot and they're going on girls' nights and all the rest of it, but they still have strong traditional values. They're kind of just not necessarily
Yeah.
aligned to them at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you'll get some girls that really just don't have very good values at all. So it's important when
Yeah.
you're in that talking stage to actually get to know someone and their
Yeah.
values. You're not just
Mm-hmm.
there to kind of chat about your day or the weather or just sexting all the time, whatever. Like
Mm-hmm.
you're actually consciously trying to see, is this woman a good woman? Does she have good values?
Yep.
Um, and I think again, it comes down to guys not really seeing their own value and their own worth.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't see your own value, if you don't see your own worth, then you're going to attach yourself to anyone who's giving you a little bit of attention.
Yep.
And yeah, so but I think at the same time, like if you're not at least pushing towards becoming um, one of those kind of elite men, then you're
Mm-hmm.
always going to struggle when it comes to the attraction side of things. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so making sure that you're I think money is very important.
Sure.
It's something that's understated a lot. But if your money isn't right, and I can speak to myself because I've been I've been broke most of my life. Is that like when you're broke, you don't have very good habits, just in general.
Yeah.
Um, you
Mm-hmm.
don't have a very good structure.
Mm-hmm.
You're not taking action like you should be. Like, there's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of areas in your life that struggle because you don't have money, and I think it's the same is true if you're a guy who's doing a 9 to 5 job. Maybe you're like making 30, 35K, 40K, however much you're making, but that isn't really enough money to live a lifestyle that's like a free lifestyle, not even necessarily like a luxury lifestyle, but you're
Mm-hmm.
very much dependent on someone paying you, which is firstly like just not going to be good for your self esteem, for your self worth. I think every man should strive to have their own business. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, that the ability to make money is extremely attractive to women, which is why obviously you see women gravitate towards guys that are rich, and it's one of those, again, those kind of incels or simp mentality of like, oh, like how come he gets all the girls, like he's rich, he's a fucking he's an arsehole, like all of this sort of negative energy towards those guys that have money.
Mm-hmm.
But again, you're not going to change female nature at the end of the day, regardless
No.
of how good a woman is. Like she needs to feel like you're a man who is powerful and significant in the world. That you're able to go out into the world and get shit done. And that's
Mm-hmm.
obviously what you're able to do if you are rich. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there's some guys that get it handed out to them on a plate, but that's the minority. I
Yeah.
think a lot of guys look at rich people and think they've had it easy, like they've inherited a load of money or the rest of it. But the majority of people that are financially successful have gone through a lot of shit in order to get to the place that they are. So,
Hmm.
Bit of a tangent, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's my take.
Yeah, I mean it's true because I think that there's as far as the money thing, there's a negative stigma about people with money. They think, oh well, they're not generous, they're greedy, they're not a good person, and it's just like where does this stuff come from? Um, I think the media, I think movies and shit that teach you like, oh well, this person with money, they're always the asshole, they're always the villain in the movie, like the pompous rich person. But I've met a lot of people with money, and they're very generous. They're very good people. They're like easy to get along with. So that's kind of one of those stigmas about having money that I think people just adopt. But in terms of what you mentioned about like having money and women being attracted to that. So I'm reading the book Evolutionary Psychology right now by I think his name's David M. Buss, and he did a I don't know if he did it, but he looked at different research about women, what they value in a long term mate, and this was across multiple different countries, multiple different cultures, multiple different races and religious beliefs. Like the theme was always the same, that the women majority of the time valued a guy that could acquire resources
Mm,
because that was always indicative of a guy that's safe, because a girl is going to value her security and her safety over how good you look or how you feel, how she feels around you. Her safety is going to be like number one
mm,
priority. So if you can provide those things to her through financial resources, through emotional stability, through direction and vision as a man, like that's what she's really looking for. So I also wanted to real briefly, I want to bring up like a red pill point because I'm curious of what your thoughts are on this.
mhm,
Because I've heard this so many times where they tell you that girls, um, they wait at the finish line for the winner and they pick the winner. And like I get where that's coming from. I understand like that point. I slightly disagree with it though, just because I feel like so my take is if you're in the race, you still have a chance, because a girl, I've seen a lot of women that date more off of potential than actually just being the guy like already. Like yeah, a guy with all that stuff established, he might have a slight edge over you, but if you're on the path to being that kind of guy and you vibe with her well, she connects with you, similar interests, similar values, she's going to put more stock into you because she sees that you have a lot of things going for you, and she's going to give you some women will give you the benefit of the doubt.
mhm,
And I think that obviously if you're a guy that's just a dreamer and you say,
mhm,
yeah, I'm going to be successful, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that, and you never do it, well, she's going to feel like an idiot because she gave you that chance and you never
mhm.
produced. So you have to eventually be the guy that you say you are. Um, but I do think that like some guys are like, oh, I don't even have a chance. I'm still starting out, and all these other guys are far ahead of me. I can't even get this girl. I wouldn't necessarily write yourself off so soon. I think if you have that ambition and you're still in the race, you
Mhm.
got a chance. Like there's some guys that are just they're sitting on the sideline watching people run the race. They're not even participating. So I think you still do have somewhat of a shot if, like I said, if you're on that path to being successful. So yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So I would say I come from a bit more of a black pill kind of philosophy. Um,
Sure.
Merging the red pill and the black pill, maybe a little bit of the blue pill as well. I think there's good aspects and elements to all of them.
Hmm.
But I think if you're creating that sexual desire, I think
Hmm.
that's really important and underplayed as well, because you can be an elite guy, but like so you can make money, you can be in good shape, you can be independent, all the things I talked about. But if you're not good at seducing women, if you don't have a good game,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
those aspects if you don't know how to like be wild in the bedroom and be creative in the bedroom and these sort of things, then um,
Hmm.
you're still going to struggle. So
For sure.
you might not be the elite guy yet. You need to obviously, as you say, be in the race.
Mm-hmm.
But you can make up for that in other areas. Like
Yeah.
you see it all the time, like the married woman who fucks the broke bartender because he doesn't give a fuck. He's got style. He's got charisma. Like he
Yeah.
does whatever the fuck he wants. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so, but I think in terms of that instant level of attraction versus maintaining a long term relationship, is that woman, she might be married, whatever, sleeps with the broke bartender, but she doesn't really have any real desire to be with that guy for the long term.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've got game and you've got charisma, but you haven't got the other areas, then you're going to be basically you're going to be a playboy. You're going to have probably a lot of sex, but you're not going to get like a meaningful long term relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, to address your point, I think I think the guys that are trying to make their way, trying to find their way. I think you shouldn't exclude yourself from the equation and think
Mm-hmm.
that they're too good for you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think again, it comes down to knowing yourself and your value and your worth, and knowing what your personal strengths are as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like you might not necessarily be the best at making money. Um, that might not be what you're particularly skilled at. Obviously, you're going to learn and try and improve that skill. But you might be naturally just better at communicating. You might be naturally better at listening and creating connection and rapport. But there has to be something that is unique about you that's significantly valuable that you're bringing to the table. That's
Mm-hmm.
different to what someone else is bringing to the table.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're just like the average guy who's trying to level up and become an elite guy, then it's probably not going to work. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but it's hard to say, I think, because obviously, again, girls that are used to settling as well.
Yeah.
They're bred with this mentality of that they should be in a long term stable relationship, that they should get married, they should have kids, and the older a woman gets as well, the more she's gonna think about that life and be willing to
Mm-hmm.
settle for a guy who's not necessarily the top guy that she wants, but a guy who's pretty good, who's pretty stable. So
Mm-hmm.
it all really depends on your ambition, not only in life but also in relationships as well. Do you want to have the most extraordinary relationship, or are you quite happy with a good relationship?
Hmm. Yeah, it does depend. It depends on, like you said, what you want in your life as a guy, what the girl wants from her life as well. Like, I think at the end of the day, and we can maybe kind of wrap it up with this. I think at the end of the day, you have to figure out as a guy what is the life of your dreams, and like what does that look like. Do you want to be an entrepreneur? Do you want to have a business, or do you want to have something that you're doing that you're passionate about, something that's a purpose in your life? Like, do you want to be, make so much money per year? How much body fat percentage do you want to be at?
Mm,
What kind of life quality of your lifestyle do you want to be? What kind of things you want to be doing? What's fun for you? And then you have to think about too, like, when you if you want to involve a woman in your life, how does she fit? What does she do? How does she help you? How does she supportive? Is she like, does she help you in your business, or does she cook for you, clean for you. Like, what do you want when it comes to a relationship? So I think the more clear guys are and what they want and who they are,
Mm-hmm.
I think everything kind of falls into place. And at the end of the day, you become the person that chooses. It's not so much life choosing you. You're kind of
Mm-hmm.
choosing and picking from life itself. So I think that kind of puts you in the power position there.
Yeah, man, definitely. I think if you select based on
Yeah.
what you truly want, then it should work out well.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's nothing wrong with being in a relationship as long as there's boundaries there,
Mm-hmm.
and she respects you. There's good sex there, obviously. All the things that you need for a fruitful relationship. Um, you don't need to be the top tier guy, like the most famous, successful guy. Like you don't need
Mm-hmm.
to be that guy. Obviously, you need to have some level of ambition.
Right.
But yeah, not everyone wants to go on that path. I guess I would say, because I think in order to become really extremely influential, you have to really get yourself into those circles, which
Mm-hmm.
obviously is going to mean that you need to travel a lot. You need to make a lot of connections. You have to be obsessed, essentially, really, in order to get to that place.
Yeah,
Um,
you do.
and it requires a lot of sacrifice. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not me to say that guys should necessarily want to make that sacrifice, because um, if you don't have that desire, that want to be at that level, which also comes with a shit ton of stress, a shit ton of responsibility. Um, it's not all roses at the top by any means. So
Mm-hmm.
I think decide what level you want to be at, and operate from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree, man. It's well said. I think, yeah, as long as you have standards and they make you fulfilled and they make you happy, great. They might not be as high as standards like mine or standards like Joe or somebody else. They don't necessarily have to be. You know, um, if you're satisfied and you're fulfilled and you feel like you're making a true difference in your life and in the world, great. Like yeah, it's not like we're telling you that you need to be more ambitious than us or do more things that we're doing. You know, find out what's unique for you and then create the life that excites you. That's really, at the end of the day, that's what we're here for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. If you're fulfilled, you're loving life,
Yeah.
then you're going to be able to keep a woman happy. Um,
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day.
Agreed.
So, but
I agree.
don't discard everything that we've already talked about. You need to
Yeah.
select well still at the same time.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Yeah. Self improvement should always be like a mandatory thing. Like no matter where you at in life, no matter what level, like self improve always. That should always be the non negotiable thing. I agree. But yeah, man. I appreciate you hopping on and having this conversation. I think there's a lot of stuff that we talked about that guys can learn from, guys can pick apart and start applying in their own lives. Um, where can people find you and look more into what you got going on?
Yeah, so Instagram, strong minded Joe, which I'm shadow banned on at the moment, which is a little bit annoying.
Mm-hmm.
And then YouTube, Joe Dean Bryson, which I'm starting to post more long form content. Been very focused on creating short form content, so I need to jump
Mm-hmm.
back onto doing more long form content. Um, and then Facebook as well. So if Jodie and Bryson on Facebook as well. I'm running like a free Facebook group as well, which is primarily aimed at helping guys to get in shape, but obviously everything else that we've talked about around that as well. And yeah, if you want to chat, if you want to send me a DM, then that would be cool.
Heck yeah. Yeah, and as always, I'll leave his links down below. Like I said in the beginning, if you want to check his stuff out, you know where my stuff is. My links are down below as well. If you want to talk to me on Instagram, you know where to find me. If you want to work with me, you know where my links are down below as well. And that's it, guys. We're going to get going. Hopefully, we'll see you in the next podcast. Hopefully, yeah, we'll get to do one of these again.
Cheers, bro.
All right, guys. Deuces.